Good morning. Welcome to Local Assistance Day. Glad you were able to join us. My name is Kevin Tucker, Local Project Management Liaison. You may have noticed folks are introducing themselves in the chat. Feel free to introduce yourself as well. Wanted to cover a few technical items this morning before we get started. Today's webinar training will be recorded. Agenda and presentation documents will be available after the meeting. The chat feature is reserved for relevant comments related to the webinar. There's a separate question and answer field that is reserved for questions to the presenters. So please use the question and answer field when asking questions. That way, after the presentation, we can select questions that want to be answered live versus maybe questions that we can answer in the question and answer field itself. Presenters are please ensure that you're muted when speaking. And with that, why don't we go ahead and get started? Let's take a look at the agenda and then kick things off. So as I mentioned, my name is Kevin Tucker, Project Management Liaison in Local Assistance. I'm going to be facilitating the webinar today. And the agenda starts with some updates, and wanted to note a change in the agenda. He will be doing the introduction, and then Rich Murphy is not able to join us today. We have a presentation on the Highway Safety Improvement Program and Cycle 12 Call for Projects, a short break, and then we're going to be covering right-of-way, Local Assistance Procedures Manual revisions, and the certification review process. Then a presentation on value engineering analysis, and also covering Local Assistance Program Build a Better Mousetrap Innovation Competition. And then I'll be covering Local Assistance upcoming office hours and webinars before I will be providing the closing comments as well. And with that, I'd like to introduce Dee Lamb, the Division Chief for Local Assistance, to give us an update.
Kevin, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for hopping on early morning. I know this local assistance days and local assistance training days are always beneficial to all. I've gotten a lot of good feedback over the year or so that we've been doing this. So appreciate for folks coming on, getting the information needed, asking the questions you need, looking at future topics, just being engaged. The more engaged you are, as you know, the better outcomes and better future sessions will be put together for you. Okay, and with you. So first of all, I wanted to thank the team. So Kevin and the team for putting everything together. I know it takes a lot of effort to do a lot of behind the scenes work to get these types of webinars launched, executed, follow through, follow up. So I really appreciate everybody for doing that. Again, this is just my time for just a couple of welcome, messages. I look at the agenda every time. Looks like, you've got some items this time that I think that really lends itself to speak on a couple things. One thing that you'll see is we always provide some level of program project update for everybody here. I've always said, for local assistance, it's a couple things, right? Few areas, if you will, and over time here, I've looked at local assistance in a couple buckets, if you will. One being kind of the program, the funding, the fiduciary responsibility. So you'll see like program updates, upcoming workshop opportunities for funding and programs and opportunities there. So that's what you're going to see as we shape these types of forums and other forums. If you guys are a part of different forums, local assistance forums and training, and whether they're subcommittees, committees, things like that, you're going to kind of see that the different areas, the different focus. One program will give you those updates. The other is you'll see some topics on, say, for example, the project delivery topics, and that's been very, very much needed in all aspects and all modes and all the work that you do here. I mean, I see some public works directors, I see some funding folks, I see, so many different folks that are on the line that have those, from the regions and from the COGs and from the, so we try to kind of get this going to where there's a bit for everybody, right? So programmatic, what it is to be on the delivery end and some updates there. Guidance and oversight, as you know, always popular. So we always kind of make sure that there's some meat to that and some information that we can give you there. Upcoming months, not in particular in this forum, but probably upcoming months, more on budget and funding and things like that for you as well. So last but not least, we'll always try to throw things in as, what are some types of process improvements? What are the different innovations, opportunities to engage there? So use this forum to put your ideas forward. So just wanted to let you know kind of the sausage in the making, things that we think about, things that we're working on, things that, when we put something like this on, what we think about, what we bring, what we feel like would be of value, obviously from your feedback as well. So Kevin, I don't have anything in particular, but I do want to say thank you. I know Rich is not here, but thank you to Carl. Over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Dee. Just still seeing all the folks introducing themselves in the chat, so I just wanted to say welcome. We have 309 participants from all over the state. I just want to say hello and welcome. Local Assistance Day. We are moving through the agenda. Dee Lamb from the Division Chief of Local Assistance just did a little introduction, and we're moving to the first presentation, which is the Highway Safety Improvement Program and Cycle 12 Call for Projects presentation. Richard Key and Simrit Dillon from the Office of Federal Programs will be giving the presentation today, and I'll hand it over to them.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, I'm excited to join here. My name is Richard Key. I work in Office of Federal Programs in Local Assistance. So we just announced Cycle 12 Call for Projects on Monday. So this webinar is perfect timing. Today, me and Simrit will introduce the program. So we will talk about the program overall, what's the purpose, who can apply, funding level, and past and current calls for projects. We will cover project delivery requirements and the current status of active projects. And then we will focus on the brand new Cycle 12 for projects. We have funding set aside. We have also a benefit cost ratio. So two big categories of applications. And, where's the application form and what's the application submittal process. And at the end, I will share our contact information together with some useful web pages and documents. So what is HSIP, Local Highway Safety Improvement Program? The purpose of this program is to achieve a significant reduction in fatalities and serious injuries on all public roads. So state highways are here, local roads are here, tribal land roads are also included. We have actually 2 HSIP programs in the state. This is the local side. The other side is for state highways. So Caltrans Office of, I think, Division of Safety programs manage that part. So today, we will just talk about the local HSIP. So the law is in Title 23, US Code 148, and we use 23 CFR, Section 924 and 498 to guide us implementing the program. So who can apply for local HSIP funding? Basically, any local agency who owns, operates, and maintains public roadways. So our biggest clients are cities and counties, 58 counties in the state and over 500 cities, larger or small. So cities and counties, and also, tribal land roads are eligible. So tribes are eligible to apply as well. MPOs and RTPAs, they are also eligible to apply if, like on behalf of local agencies, cities and counties, especially if the project goes beyond the border of one city or one county. Funding level. So again, we have state HSIP and local HSIP. Every year we get about $240 million from FHWA, and the local side has about $120 million. A few years ago, we have SB 137, which allows us to exchange for state funds. So that's why in the most recent 2 cycles, we are able to use state funds. This SB 137 actually is not just for highway safety improvement program. It's for all federal aid programs. But I think so far, only HSIP takes advantage of this because we realize that state funds are more like, environmental requirements are less. So local agencies like to use state funds. Every year, we can exchange for a maximum of $100 million. So we are going to have both state and federal funds, probably for the next quite a long time. HSIP calls for projects. So the program started in 2007. In the beginning, it's kind of, sometimes every year, sometimes every other year, but most recently, at least from 2016, we have one call for projects about every 2 years. So the most recent one was cycle 11 in 2022. And the one we just announced, cycle 12, that's what we are accepting applications right now. So this is just some data from most recent cycle 8 to cycle 11. So we started to receive more and more applications. So the program is really competitive. The benefit cost ratio cutoff increased quite a lot. So cycle 8, the BCAR cutoff, for the projects to be selected for funding was 3.5. And then 2 years later, 7.5, cycle 10, 12, cycle 11, 18. So this time, cycle 12, I don't know, but I would think it would be at least, like 15 or above. The average benefit cost ratio is 21.9 overall, right, for selected projects. So which means every dollar we spent, we will be getting $22 or $21.9 back by saving lives, by reducing fatalities and serious injuries. So altogether, we have selected about 1,000 projects for a total of $867 million, and the expected benefits are are about 19 billion. So that's really, we want to put safety dollars to be used as soon as possible. It's very critical for local agencies to put the money in use to deliver the projects as quickly as possible. All right, so next, Simrit, can you take over to talk about project delivery requirements and current status?
Yes, so now we will talk about the project delivery requirements and status. For the next slide. Okay. So the project delivery requirements are to ensure safety projects are delivered in a timely manner. There are 2 milestones. First being the preliminary engineering authorization needs to be completed within the 9 months, and the construction authorization within 36 months or 3 years. If a time extension is needed due to the ability of not meeting these 2 milestones, 1 time extension for each PE and con authorization is usually given. If a second time extension is needed, then the agency will meet with the HSIP local advisory committee meeting. And usually what will happen is the agency will explain the reason for the time extension, and from there the committee will make a decision how to further encounter the project. The agency is not able to apply for new HSIP funds if an active HSIP project is flagged for not meeting the delivery requirements. To resolve this flag, the district local assistance engineer must receive the request for authorization package by September 30th, 2024, and to verify that it is complete, or an extension is granted if justified. The second option is if 2 or more active HSIP projects are still not in construction after 5 years from the project selection. And the current status from cycles 8 to 11 is shown here. There is a total of 976 projects. 14 are not authorized yet. 30 are in the PE or right-of-way. And almost 40 are in construction, and 22% is completed. 72 projects are currently delayed. However, we have reached out to the districts and agencies to get updates on these projects.
Thank you, Simrit. So I will talk about cycle 12 call for projects. So this is the exciting part, I would say. The announcement was Monday. So you guys have 4 months plus 1 day from today to submit applications. So that's a long time. You have plenty of time to prepare applications. We are really encourage local agencies to submit applications earlier than the deadline. So that way, number one, it's good to us, so we can even our workload. We can review applications when applications come in. And also, number two, it's good to you, because if we find anything not right or anything missing, we will contact you, before the deadline, so you have a chance to correct. So once we receive all the applications, we will review September, October, and hopefully get the list of funded projects announced before the end of the year. So that's the timeline of the cycle. And so this is some more details. Again, who can apply? Cities and counties, tribes, and RTPAs and MPOs. So there are two requirements. One is the project delivery requirements, Simran just mentioned. So you need to get your delayed projects authorized, or you get a time extension. Number two, that's the requirement from last cycle. From cycle 11 already, applicants must have completed local roadway safety plan or something similar. So like Mission Zero or systemic safety analysis report or SS4A action plan. They are all qualified as equivalent to LRSP. So we are expecting to use both state funds and federal funds this time. So we still have federal funds. Number one, the state funding exchange is not covering everything. And also currently we have two special rules: high risk rural roads, HRRR special rule, and vulnerable road user special rules. Basically, certain amount of funds must spend on, projects qualified for HRRR or vulnerable road users. So we have to use federal funds when that are eligible under these two categories. Also, like last cycle, we allow multiple applications for the same project. So there's a reason for this, because for safety analysis, especially for systemic approach project, like you select multiple locations and bundle them together. So one dilemma is if you have more locations, then the benefit cost ratio could be lower. But if you select less, the benefit cost ratio is high. At the time, we don't know what's the cutoff. So it's kind of it's hard to say, you include 10 locations or 15. So we allow you to submit multiple locations, and we will choose the most appropriate one to be funded if that meets the BC, at least one of the applications meets the BCR. This is, there's more instructions in the application guidelines on this. Funding reimbursement ratio is 90%. So application categories, benefit cost ratio, BCR applications is the biggest category, majority of the funding. So 300 million altogether, 252 will be used for benefit cost ratio applications. Benefits BCR calculation is required, and the projects will be prioritized from highest BCR to lower, and we select as many as possible to be funded from the top. Application minimum BCR, it has to be at least 4 to be submitted. So as I mentioned earlier, the BCR cutoff last time was 18. So 4 is really not that high. So we want to save your resources to work on not that high BCR projects. Under BCR, each agency, the maximum amount can be awarded is $10 million. So if you have more than $10 million, we can award at the most $10 million. Number of applications, there's no limit. You can submit as many BCR applications as possible. Funding set aside, about $48 million. No benefit cost ratio calculation is required. And the application preparation is less, is much simpler. Again, the reimbursement ratio is 90%. We have quite a few subcategories under set-asides, which I will cover later. So each agency is allowed to submit at most one application under each set-aside. So the 5 set-asides, guardrail upgrades, pedestrian crossing enhancements, edge lines, bike safety improvements, and we have one special one for tribes. So if we receive more applications, more set-asides applications than we can fund, then we will look at agencies who have never awarded funding in the last 2 cycles, or have no same set-aside funds awarded. They have the priorities. And if that's a tie, we will use fatal and severe injury crashes, the number in the last 3 years to rank. So guardrail upgrades, total $15 million, maximally $1 million per project. So this is not for new guardrails. New guardrails would be under a benefit cost ratio. And also guardrails for bridges are not eligible. Pedestrian crossing enhancements, we have $20 million and $350K maximum per project. So this can be most of the pedestrian and bike safety projects, like pedestrian countdown signal, LPI, leading pedestrian interval, warning beacons, things like that. So this one is most popular from our past cycles. Edge line, install edge lines, we have $3 million and again, $350K maximum per project. Bike safety, $7 million, the same maximum per project. And this is for installing bike lanes, new bike lanes, and if you have multiple use path trails, you want to remove objects and install wayfinding signs, that's also eligible under bike safety set aside. So tribes, we do encourage to work with tribes, Caltrans districts to work with tribes to encourage them to submit applications. We also had same set aside before, but we did not receive a lot of applications. So anything under the previous 4 set asides are eligible. And also we add more low cost safety countermeasures to be eligible under this set aside for tribes. So now I'm going to talk about specifically about benefit cost ratio calculation applications. So the work for BCR must be related to the safety countermeasures we listed in the manual. And we prefer projects with minimal right-of-way and environmental complications. So for certain, like a shoulder widening, those projects we require to try low-cost countermeasures first, which I will talk more later. And for BCR, again, we rank them using the number, BCR number, and the minimum BCR to be submit is 4. So if the BCR is less than 4, we are not going to review. So really, to prepare a BCR application, it's not like a grant writer's work, but more like an engineer's work. So in the beginning, you need to review the requirements, the manuals before you start. So the real calculation or analysis is from step 4 to 7. So you want to identify locations based on the crash numbers, crash pattern, group some locations together, and then select the best safety countermeasures based on the crash pattern, and then do preliminary design, and also cost estimate. So you can calculate the benefit cost ratio. Together with the application form, we have HSIP analyzer. Basically, you just need to enter, what countermeasure you are going to use, crash data, and then HSIP analyzer will calculate the benefit cost ratio for you. So from 4 to 7, you go back and forth and develop your best applications. Hopefully, you have done a lot of work already based on the outcome from the local roadway safety plan. So you probably can go there and then select some locations there and start to use our form and HSIP analyzer to calculate the BCR. So after it's done, you attach all the required documents to the application form, and then you submit through a link at our website. So this time we use Smartsheet to collect applications. But you pretty much you don't need to know much about Smartsheet. It's a process embedded in our website. So all BCR applications needs to use the listed 86 safety countermeasures. Each countermeasure, belongs to one of the 3 locations: signalized intersections, non-signalized intersections, or roadway segments. So we have 22 for SI, 25 non-signalized, and 39 for roadways. Also, each countermeasure is applying to a certain type of crashes. So 63 of the countermeasures, we use all different crashes. 18, that's for ped and bike improvements. 3 for night crashes only. And we have 1 countermeasure for emergency vehicles only, and 1 for crashes that involved animals. So this is an example. This is actually the table of countermeasures for signalized intersections. So let me take one as an example. For example, SI14 is install right turn lanes. This all crashes apply to this countermeasure, and the crash reduction factor is 15. So basically, if there were 10 crashes after you apply this countermeasure, the calculation will reduce that by 1.5 or 15%. And in the calculation, the life is 20 years. So the last one is systemic approach opportunity. So basically, what's the chance you can use this countermeasure to develop, to bundle multiple locations and not just do a single location, or so that's systemic approach opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, we prefer projects with minimal right-of-way. So for this 4 countermeasures, shoulder widening, curve shoulder widening, and improve horizontal or vertical curves. So these are major works, and most likely it requires, right of way. So we want that you have tried low cost improvements first. So in the application form, you need to demonstrate, something has already been done, but this is like you have to do this. So this is more specific requirements. So I will just talk real quick here because we will have Cycle 12 webinar coming up May 21st. So for new signal, we need a traffic warrant. So 4, 5, or 7. 4 is pedestrian volume warrant, 5 school crossing or crash experience, number 7. For pedestrian signal, it's pretty much the same, but you can also use 4F1, 4F2 to justify, which is traffic volume versus pedestrian volume, like a figure. In the manual, you will see the details. Also, convert signal to master arm and improve signal hardware should not be used together because SI 07 should include SI 02 already. They should not be treated as separate improvements. So there are some actually other rules which I'm not going to cover here today. So application preparation for for set aside, really you want to look at the entire agency and select the best locations. So it's kind of simpler than BCR applications. You just need to make sure the work is eligible under the set aside you are choosing. So for BCR applications, to develop a good one, number one, you should make sure countermeasures are used correctly. And you use crashes only within the influence area of the countermeasures. And pay attention to the incremental approach and warranty requirements. You want to maximize the benefit of the project. So you want to select locations with more crashes and also use multiple countermeasures when possible. You don't want to add a lot of non-safety components to project. So make sure the benefit is higher and the cost is lower. So benefit divided by cost will be higher, right? So that's about the two categories. Application form and the submittal. So if you just go to local HSIP website, there's a bunch of details there. Basically, yeah, again, we will use Smartsheet to collect applications this time. So you just follow that embedded Smartsheet link and go from there. For the application form and HSIP analyzer as well, you need at least Adobe Reader DC to make sure the forms will work. So you can download that for free. So this is the attachment requirements for the application. The attachments should be all attached to the last page of the application form. So the first one is the self-certification of the local roadway safety plan. We don't require you to submit the full version of the plan, but we need a certification. And we might, if we need to look at, we might request later. Engineer's checklist is the next one, and we need the maps, pictures, and number 6, HSIP analyzer. That's the one I mentioned, which is used to calculate the benefit cost ratio. We also need crash diagrams, crash lists, if it is a benefit cost ratio application. Warranty studies, warrant 4, 5, or 7, for new signals. And if the project involves Caltrans state highway system, we need a letter or email of support from Caltrans district. And then the last one is if you have anything else, letters of support, documentation, but please don't send us like a very general applications. I'm not applications, documents, very big size, you know, not very related to your specific application. We don't need those documents. So the first one is our local HSIP website. And yeah, you must visit this to get all the documents, instructions for the application process. Local roadway safety plan is also, a safety manual is also available at this website. This is revised every time when we have a call for projects. It has details about, you know, the safety countermeasures listed. TIM's website, Transportation Injury Mapping System. So this is UC Berkeley's website. I listed here because if you don't have, especially for small cities, if you don't have any crash data database, this website, you can just register for free, and it provides GIS mapping for crash data. So that I know many agencies actually use this site. FHWA safety website, it has a lot of manuals and guidance as well. So if you are not familiar with safety subject, you can go to this website and do some search there. All right, so if you have any questions about Cycle 12 or about our program, you may contact your prospective Caltrans district, or you can contact me or Simrit. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard and Simrit, for your presentations today. Now we will be doing the question and answer session. So we have a number of questions that have come in. We'll start with a question regarding local road safety plans. Will there be an upcoming funding provided to local agencies to update or create a local road safety plan?
So we have provided funding before, but currently we don't have any new funding to do the safety plan or update the safety plan.
Okay. Question, can you combine different?
Sorry, just one thing to add. So for the safety action plan, there's program Safe Streets for All, SS4A. The program FHWA manages directly. That program provides funding for safety plans or action plans. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Just want to remind folks that may have joined us later, there's a chat field, and then there's a separate question and answer field. Please enter your questions into the question and answer field. Next question, can you combine different set-aside funding into one big improvement project? For example, you may ask for $350,000 for pedestrian enhancements and $350,000 for bike safety, which the total project would be worth $700,000. That makes sense, Richard?
During the application process, they cannot be combined because it is under each set aside. So if more than one set aside projects are selected for funding for your agency, you may combine them later in project implementation. But again, the applications cannot be combined right now.
All right, next question. In your presentation, you mentioned that some projects require benefit cost ratio. So what is the reimbursement ratio for benefit cost ratio applications?
So it's all 90%, no matter it is set aside or benefit cost ratio. Actually, for benefit cost ratio, there's one safety countermeasure, which is the third one under section signalized intersections. It is improve signal timing. So that is only 50%, not 90%, because we consider that as operational. So the local agency and our program will share 50-50 in that case, but everything else, it's all 90%. Thank you.
All right, next question. What is the typical influence area used for the application of countermeasures?
So that really depends on the specific countermeasures. So you may review that local roadway safety manual. So for example, if it's an intersection, I believe it goes 250 feet from the intersection. So there are more details there. So please go through and basically when you select a safety countermeasure, you can search for that one, and there's one table showing details of that particular safety countermeasure.
Okay, next question. When is the deadline for the Safe Streets for All program?
That one, I don't have that handy. I can search, or I can ask FHWA about that. I think they have different deadlines for different kinds of applications.
Okay, yeah, we'll follow up on that one. A question about bike set-aside funding. Can they use bike set-aside funding just for preliminary engineering phase?
No, every project, it has to be for construction purpose. Eventually it needs to be constructed, not just for design only. Design and right-of-way costs are eligible, but it cannot be just for design and right-of-way. It has to be something, in place in the future.
Okay, and another question about the local road safety plan. When you say completed the local road safety plan, do you mean that it needs to be adopted by the city council?
Yeah, we actually, I talked this with our office. So we recommend that the safety plan is adopted by the city council or the board, but that is not a requirement. So as long as the safety plan is completed, we are fine. But we do recommend you go through the that process.
Another question about benefit cost ratio projects. Can you use set-asides to partially fund a benefit cost ratio project to increase the benefit cost ratio?
So the application has to be either set aside or benefit cost ratio. To my understanding, I mean, what funding to use will not change the benefit cost ratio. So yeah, because the ratio is the benefit divided by the total project cost, not just the, you know, the cost paid by local HSIP. So yeah, that I don't think it will change the benefit cost ratio. Anyway, each application can only be either or, not both.
All right, we have a question about construction allocation. So they submitted their construction allocation mid-March for cycle 10 project funding. It's been about 2 months and they didn't receive approval yet. Can you say how long it really takes to get the funding approved for construction allocation? The agreement states that construction can be allocated by March 31st of 2024.
So for allocation requests to be processed, normally it won't take that long. So I highly recommend you know, send an email or contact the district local assistance and ask the status. So it's not like it's forgotten or it's missing somewhere. Follow up with the contact person.
Yeah, so just to remind folks, the district local assistance engineer is a great resource for specific questions about your projects. Question about road safety audits. Are road safety audits covered under HSIP? For example, to identify which road signs would be upgraded by the benefit cost ratio CM. Not sure what that stands for.
Yeah, the roadway safety audit is covered under like PE phase of the project. So we do realize for those projects, you know, it takes a lot of efforts to identify locations, and the PE cost can be higher than normal. So normally it's, you know, within 25%, but for roadway safety audit, the PE percentage can be higher. And yeah, so that is considered eligible cost.
All right, another question about the local road safety plan. If the local road safety plan was adopted 4 to 5 years ago, is that still acceptable?
Yeah, for the plan, our requirement is it needs to be updated or validated every 5 years. So if it's more than 5 years, you know, a lot of things might have changed. So local agencies should review and validate the existing version or update the safety plan.
And I had a question, Richard. You mentioned in your presentation that there's about 120 million per year for the HSIP program. What's the current funding for this call for projects?
Oh, it's $300 million. I think it was in one of the slides. Maybe I missed it. So, but it's 300. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I just wanted you to say that again. 300 million. So we're talking about a lot of funding in this current cycle. So encourage folks to apply for HSIP. Yeah, just if there are any additional questions, this is your opportunity to ask questions. Feel free to insert those questions into the Q&A.
Yeah, and again, we have May 21st Cycle 12 webinar coming up. So if you go to our website, there's a link to register there. And at that webinar, we will have more details. It's kind of like this one, but there will be even like examples of calculations.
Okay, I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. Simrit, Richard, anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, it's all good. I really hope we can receive our first application maybe next week. Thank you.
Thanks again, Richard and Simrit, for your presentation on the Highway Safety Improvement Program. We have, if you look in the chat, there's the Caltrans Local Assistance, Division of Local Assistance Engagement form. So there's a smart sheet where you're able to enter in questions for local assistance. And there's also the email, general email that you can reach out to for local assistance questions as well. And there will be a frequently asked questions provided after the webinar with some of the questions that came up that we weren't able to answer during the webinar. We're currently ahead of schedule. We have a break before we go into our next set of presentations in the agenda. So right now we're going to be taking a 10-minute break before we start back up again. So see you in 10 minutes. All right. Break time is over. Welcome back to Local Assistance Day webinar. We covered our previous presentation on the Highway Safety Improvement Program. Now we're moving to presentations on right-of-way. We have two presenters. But first, I just wanted to mention real quick about the chat and information that's being entered into the chat. So just make sure you're checking for that. There's a lot of great resources regarding the local assistance blog, website, YouTube channel with previous local assistance day recordings. So check that for information. And now we'll transition to presentations on right-of-way. As I mentioned, we have two presenters. I want to first introduce our first presenter, Lisa Spellenberg from Local Assistance Office of Local Right-of-Way with presentation Local Assistance Procedures Manual Revisions, Exhibit 13A. Lisa Spellenberg.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present some changes in our 13A. We've done a Lean Six Sigma process to improve the approach, and it was completed on the Local Assistance Procedure Manual, Exhibit 13A. Our team included staff from the Division of Local Assistance, Division of Right-of-Way and Land Surveys, the Federal Highway Administration, and local public agencies. The Exhibit 13A has no processing time baseline, resulting in unidentified efficiencies and inefficiencies. We analyzed 21 samples of accepted exhibits of 13A, which is your no right-of-way cert, for over 4 months, and we're able to estimate a cost savings of $1,044,753 in savings. Effective as of May 24th, please use the revised 13A in the local assistance procedure manual. It's a short form right-of-way certification for off-system projects. Oh, a minute. Yeah, for all systems, project systems, and will be implemented for all federally funded local projects. The form will have a required attachment checklist of documents that will be needed to be attached to your 13A before submitting for acceptance. The form will have a note indicating certification must be signed by the person authorized by the current resolution of the LPA. So each of the LPAs has a board of supervisors or a city council or whatever your approval process is. They must designate the person who can sign on your 13A. The form will replace the line for project ID with federal project number or federal prefix project number. We remove the third checkbox in 5, the status of required utility relocations. Utility agreements are not required on this project, therefore Buy America requirements don't apply. So that's something new. And they've updated the distribution directions. So hopefully this will make you more successful in your applications for your right-of-way certifications. That was the intent. So we don't get a lot of back and forth asking for more information. Back to you, Kevin, I believe.
Thanks, Lisa, for the quick update and information on the process improvement. Always excited to hear about process improvements. Continuing on the topic of right-of-way, we have our next presenter, Jennifer Wisniewski from Caltrans right-of-way office, giving a presentation on the certification review process. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Great, thank you. Yes, as Kevin mentioned, my name is Jennifer Wisniewski. I do work in our headquarters office of appraisals and local programs. So we're going to take this opportunity to just go over the right-of-way certification and some of the things that you should be thinking about when you are getting ready to prepare that document, and things you should be thinking about during your right-of-way phase so that your preparing the document goes more smoothly, more efficiently. For the purpose of space on this presentation, we do have acronyms. I think most of them are probably pretty self-explanatory, but if you need to, you can always go back to this page if you're unsure of what the acronyms are actually representing. So the overview that we're going to talk about today, it's, the right-of-way certification, the purpose, the manuals and guidance that you should be utilizing, Caltrans oversight prior to the certification, the different levels of certifications that you can prepare, what we are looking for as part of your, when we're doing the review and the acceptance of your certification document. And then we'll go over some common deficiencies that we have found. So the right-of-way certification, what is it? It's your written statement that's summarizing what the status is of all of your right-of-way deliverables. It's needed for federal aid construction projects, and it's going to outline basically all of those real property interests that you have secured. So all of those parcels that you've acquired, maybe you've acquired in fee, or you've acquired easements or temporary rights, all of those are going to have to be documented on your right-of-way certification document. It's going to outline any physical obstructions. The two big ones that need to be identified is if there's utilities in the project location and those that need to be relocated. And it's also going to outline any railroad approvals that you needed if we're working in, closely into the vicinity of some of the railroad lines. It's also going to talk about relocation. So those people that we've acquired property and you're going to have to relocate them and they're considered displacees. You're going to be outlining the status of those. And basically, you're also going to be just documenting that you are following the federal regulations the Uniform Act and the state laws that apply to right-of-way. So right-of-way certs are required for any project that has a PS&E. They basically are kind of tandem documents. Our right-of-way cert is going to be consistent with what you've outlined in your PS&E package. You're going to need a right-of-way cert anytime you're going to get federal reimbursement. That's a requirement. If you have an emergency project, right-of-way certs are still needed. However, you can start your work prior to actually doing the right-of-way document, but it would still be needed if you're getting federal reimbursement for that. In the case of emergency projects, I would, suggest work with your local Caltrans office to ensure that you're handling that right-of-way certification in the manner that you're supposed to. Now, right-of-way certifications, there's manuals and guidance that's out there for right-of-way work. And the two Caltrans reference manuals that are out there is the Local Assistance Procedures Manual and the Caltrans Right-of-Way Manual. The Local Assistance Procedures Manual is written for off-system projects. It does outline, some of the requirements, details some of the processes. The Caltrans Right-of-Way Manual is, in fact, the FHWA approved manual that has all of the regulation requirements and the state law requirements that you need to follow for your right-of-way deliverables. So you will actually be needing to look at both. The Local Assistance Procedure Manual has a Chapter 13, which is devoted to right-of-way. It also has Chapter 14, which has been written to get more into the weeds for right-of-way utility relocation work. When it comes to utility relocation, the LAPM Chapter 14 is probably going to be your primary resource, because those are the forms that you'll be utilizing. We've actually created forms for you to use in the utility relocation world that are in Chapter 14. The other thing is, the manuals are, sometimes they're hard to read, hard to navigate, and you can get your additional guidance from your district right-of-way offices. We have 12 district offices. Each of our right-of-way offices has a local programs unit. Their role is to work with all of the local public agencies to ensure that you're aware of what needs to occur. They look at your right-of-way cert. When it's time to cert, they'll look at your documents. So I would just say you can contact them if you have questions. If you've been looking through the manuals and you're still unsure about certain things, that's your primary resource. So for steps for successful and efficient certification acceptance, the very first thing is early engagement with your Caltrans District Local Programs Office. They need to know what's happening in your world for your local programs or your local transportation projects. And the document that's going to give them the first insight is the preliminary engineering right-of-way form. That's the per Exhibit 13E. You're going to be submitting that early in the environmental stage. That will be submitted to the district office. That clues them in that this is something that you're working on. It will give them an idea of what kind of right-of-way requirements you might have, so that they're able to plan accordingly as to how they're going to need to work with you and how they're going to have to review your documents for oversight. And that is what we call our real-time monitoring. So we have real-time monitoring that needs to occur for your LPA right-of-way activities. We have a stewardship and oversight agreement with FHWA, and as part of that agreement, FHWA has essentially designated Caltrans to be the oversight authority on your local projects for your right-of-way deliverables. So we have our real-time monitoring process. It's outlined in the manuals and the LAPM. So essentially the way that we handle that is generally we're going to be looking at a percentage of your right-of-way documents as you're working on your documents. So when you are doing an appraisal, You'll be sending some of the appraisals in, we'll be reviewing it, giving you basically the thumbs up that they are regulation state law compliant. And as you're moving on to your acquisitions, et cetera, we'll look at those. The sampling I mentioned is generally 15%. If there are deficiencies that are being found in those documents, it could be more. Essentially, those deficiencies have to be corrected or you will not be able to get your right-of-way cert accepted by Caltrans. The local programs office that you have kind of been working with and you've advised of your project early on, they'll let you know what parcel documents they want to look at as part of your project. And then, as I mentioned, by doing this early, there is ample time to correct any deficiencies. So you don't jeopardize your federal reimbursement before certification. We still have local public agency right-of-way certifications that show up that we have not had the opportunity to look at any of the documents. And in that case, usually certification, you're under crunch time, you need that signed. If real-time monitoring has not occurred, they're going to hold the certification and they're going to do it at that point. And then if there are problems, obviously there's going to be, there's not going to be adequate time for you to correct those deficiencies. So just make sure that you work closely with our Caltrans offices so that you don't have any issues when it comes to certification. One of the big things to make sure that you're successful in certification acceptance is giving Caltrans adequate time to review. There are different levels of certifications, which I'm going to be talking about. They have different requirements as to review, who has to actually review it within our Caltrans organization. We know that quite often you guys are delivering right away. The certification is needed immediately. We understand that, the expedite, but try to build in that adequate time so that you're not, it'll make it a little less stressful for you and for us when we're looking at those documents. Ensure the information on the certification is accurate. You want to make sure it's comprehensive and it's consistent with the PS&E plans. We do look at the PS&E in collaboration with reviewing the right-of-way cert to make sure that those things match up. There are required attachments that should be part of the right-of-way certification. Now, the first one is the resolution. We need to know whom within your local public agency has authority to sign that right-of-way certification document. That's generally handled by a resolution that's signed by the city or county or whatever the board. You need to make sure that the district Caltrans office, that is your primary point of contact, that they have the most current resolution on file. You do not need to submit this resolution with each certification. Once we have one on file, they will keep it and they'll refer to it when certifications roll in. But be proactive if there are any changes to who in your organization is going to have authority. Be proactive in forwarding that document to us. You don't have to forward it with the cert. You could certainly just email it in and let them know that this is a change. They'll file it away for whatever future certs come in. Another thing that has to come in with the right-of-way certification document is the FHWA specific authorization and the approval of the utility agreement. That is the document that we're signing off when you have utility relocations and you have liability to pay for those, then you're going to want to get federal reimbursement. We need to sign that document as part of the right-of-way certification. So make sure that is an attachment. And then, as I mentioned before, the PS&E, because we do need to look at the PS&E and make sure that the right-of-way covers what is outlined in the PS&E package. There are 2 certification exhibits. We're in local assistance day. So what's up here is the LAPM exhibits, the 13A and the 13B. I do want to make a note for those of you in local public agencies that also do work on our state highway system. Those are certification exhibits that you would use out of our right-of-way manual, chapter 17. But for the purpose of here speaking to off-system federal aid projects from local assistance, you've got the 13A exhibit, which is considered what we call the short-term right-of-way local assistance project certification. That is the simpler document. Essentially, you have no right-of-way acquisition. That would be no fee, no temporary rights, nothing that you would add any interaction or rights that you needed to get from property owners. Therefore, no relocation assistance. This certification, the only thing that would be on it is if you had minor utility relocation involvement, and that would be limited to just cover adjustments. Anything that goes beyond cover adjustments would go on to the exhibit 13B. That 13B is a standard right-of-way form. It is going to have an area for acquisition of property rights, utility relocations, railroad relocation of displacees, etc. The Code of Federal Regulation gives some flexibility when it comes to right-of-way certification. So what we have devised is we have different levels of certification. You'll need to know which level you're at when you fill out your certification document, because you're going to be identifying that level on the form. The primary certification level, the one that you should always be building into your schedule to achieve, is the certification level 1. This basically, this document is, there's no acquisition. You have, if there was acquisition, you have full legal and physical possession of all of those parcels. So what that allows you is you can advertise and award the construction contract. So as I mentioned, this is what you should be striving for. Any other level is going to require additional work. But you do have, if you're not quite there with all of your property acquisitions, there is potential that you might want to certify with a lower level, which it could be a certification level 2. What that is it's basically giving you your physical possession, but maybe possibly not all of your legal rights have, you don't quite have all of your legal possession yet. But what that could be is if you're able to, you might have property owners that are not, they might be in agreement to letting you out there and having access to the property, but they may not be in agreement, let's say, to price yet. So you're still in negotiations. If you're able to secure a document that gives you physical possession, possibly a right of entry or a possession and use agreement, you could certify at a level 2. Basically, it's saying that you have your physical possession. You can advertise an award, and you're basically saying to your construction contractor that comes on board, you have all the rights that you need. And then you'll continue with your negotiations and finish up those legal, the legal paperwork to close the loop. We now have what's called a certification conditional level 3. At the bare minimum, in order to certify at a level 3, you would have to have a resolution of necessity. So that would be something that you would have had to have had that obtained, and then you would be in the process of getting any kind of order for possession. With this document, you can advertise, but you cannot do bid opening. So in order to get to bid opening, you would have to upgrade this to a cert level 1 or 2. This is not utilized that often because of that fact. You're not ready for construction until you upgrade. But if you did try to pursue getting this, there is an additional document that has to be completed. And the reason being is because the Code of Federal Regulation states that this level of certification can only be used in extraordinary circumstances. So you would be required to fill out a memorandum of justification, and you would be required to submit that with the certification. And that's when you're going to outline what exactly is requiring the need for you to advertise at this time. rather than waiting until you have all of your acquisition property rights completed. There are complexities, obviously, with this level. There are additional approvals that are required. Normally, Caltrans will accept your certification documents in the district offices. When you're starting to get into level 3 certifications, they do have another level of approval that would be in our headquarters office. So obviously that does add time to the acceptance timeframe. There is an additional certification that's called a certification 3 with a workaround. Once again, you would have to have a resolution of necessity from your board saying that you absolutely need this, these property rights in order to do your transportation project. You might have an order of possession hearing and service dates, but they may not be effective. Again, it has to be used in extraordinary circumstances outlined in the Code of Federal Regulations. You would also have to do for this a memorandum of justification outlining the requirements, the need for advertising at this time. Unlike the previous conditional 3, where you would have to upgrade to a level 1 or 2 and you could not go to bid opening, the workaround certification level does allow you to advertise and award the construction package. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to identify your plan that shows that, yes, the construction contractor could get out there and start your project. There's a logical sequence of work that can occur, even though you have certain parcels that they could not or do not yet have access to. So there would be a realistic plan that you would have to put also within that memorandum of justification, because you have to be able to reflect that there's not going to be any delay. You could advertise an award and there's not going to be a delay for the construction contract to start. So that's something to consider when you're at this level. You also would have to update this certification. You don't have to upgrade it to a higher level, but you would have to update it 15 days prior to bid opening. And the reason being is they're going to want to capture within the contract specs for the contractor where things are at. So you might have actually closed some of your acquisition. So you're just giving a final update as to, are there still workarounds, or potentially did you have you closed some of those where they're no longer workarounds? The other two things outside of, appraisal and acquisition of property rights is railroad coordination and utility relocations. The railroad coordination and utility relocations, they do not play into the different levels of certifications. You have to have, and this is stipulated in the Code of Federal Regulation, they phrase it as you have to have all necessary arrangements. So if you have railroad coordination, if you're working near or in the vicinity of a railroad, all of that has to be, all of your paperwork, any approvals that are required, that has to occur prior to certification. There's no way around that. The same goes for utility relocations. You do have to have your utilities identified, what's in conflict. You've had to notify the utility companies already. If there's liability, you would have an agreement with those utility owners identifying who's going to do the work, when it's going to happen, and then, who's basically going to pay for that. So that all needs to be coordinated prior to certification. And then I previously mentioned, if you have federal reimbursement on a utility relocation, there is the exhibit 14C that you would also be submitting. Once you certify it, do a right-of-way certification document, it's generally, you're done, except if you have a circumstance where it is over a year old. So if you have not advertised, you may need to actually update your right-of-way certification. And yes, that would require that you get another signature from Caltrans for that new updated certification. And then, as I mentioned before, the other area where you would potentially have to update a right-of-way certification after the initial document is if you're using one of those right-of-way level 3 certs. So what we're looking for in review, we are looking that the real-time monitoring has occurred. We want to know that, yes, we've already looked at all of your deliverables. We looked at some of your appraisals, some of your acquisition contracts, etc. Everything was good to go. They were Uniform Act compliant, state compliant. So if that has already occurred, then it really is, as simple as looking at the certification document itself and making sure that it is corrected. If we have not had the opportunity to do that monitoring, we'll have to set the certification aside until we do it. So make sure that you do your early engagement with the district offices. We are looking at to make sure you're using the correct exhibits. As I mentioned, there's on-system forms, there's off-system forms. So we want to make sure that you are on the appropriate exhibit. Also, the most current version. There are changes to the forms. There are language that has to be updated. So make sure that you look in the LAPM and grab the most current document. If you were to submit an older one, it may be something that would have to go back to you for an update. That's adding time to it. So just be cognizant of that. And then make sure that it comes in with that required documentation that we had asked for. Make sure it's complete, all your appropriate statements are checked, and then your specific authorization and the other attachments are there. Some of the common deficiencies that we found are quite often with temporary construction easements and when you're getting temporary rights. We do have to look at those to make sure that if you've acquired temporary rights from a property owner, that it is going to cover the whole construction window that you need it for. So you need to make sure that you put your TC effective dates and the expiration dates on there. That's a requirement. It's outlined in the manual that you have to do that. It seems obvious, but quite often there are misspellings, acronyms that are used that we're unaware of, who you're speaking to. Keep in mind, this is what we consider a professional document. It does go sometimes outside of Caltrans. It could go to the CTC for review. It goes sometimes to FHWA for review. So seems kind of obvious to state, but be cognizant of the clerical issues that you might have in your document. That's not something that we want to present to our directors to sign when there's obvious things like that are on the form. We look to make sure it makes sense. Does it look like you acquired all of the rights that you needed? Does it look like if you had to speculate when you think you might have possession of a parcel, we look to make sure that it looks realistic, that you're not basically shortcutting the process. We look for inconsistencies. If you have the right-of-way certification and the justification memo, those documents should be in tandem. So we want to make sure that the information on both is consistent. And then we'll actually go through and make sure that you have all your parcels represented and anything that you might need. So that's essentially it. The one thing I just want to add also is I neglected to mention that when you're filling out a right-of-way cert, you are putting down the information that's needed as part of your project, what you've done as part of your right-of-way project. There's also a notation on that cert that you are signing, attesting that you are aware of the regulations that you must follow and that you have in fact followed that. So you just want to make sure that you are looking at those manuals, you're following the correct guidelines, and you're working with our Caltrans offices to ensure that happens. Kevin, or if there's any questions, Kevin, can you let me know?
Thanks, Jennifer and Lisa. We'll take questions for the two presentations on right-of-way. You may have noticed that questions have been coming in and being answered in the Q&A. So if you can take a look at the Q&A, you'll see questions and answers. One of the questions and answers I wanted to highlight, give you, Jennifer and Lisa, an opportunity to add anything. There's a question about, what if a project is in the process of submitting the right-of-way certs, but did not submit the preliminary right-of-way form because they were not aware of the form? When was the form first introduced? And the answer was, for current projects that have already initiated the right-of-way phase, Caltrans is not going to require those agencies to go back and submit a 13E. So I don't know if you have anything you wanted to.
Yeah. The preliminary engineering right-of-way form, I'm going to say was introduced about 1.5 to 2 years ago, possibly. It's newer. And it is something that was introduced so we can get earlier engagement and have a better idea of what projects we may see come across our desk. So at this point, there are some certifications, some projects that are ongoing that we did not have that. That's fine. Any projects that you have in your future, just be cognizant that that's something that you should be submitting to us.
Another question, how much time should be built into the right-of-way schedule for sampling?
The sampling is real time. So, I mean, if you had multiple, let's say you had multiple parcels and you were working on appraisals, I mean, as soon as the first couple are done, you should be getting that over for the check with Caltrans. If you're very, you're confident that everything's fine, you can continue working on other appraisals. But just note that if there are deficiencies, fine, you might need to halt and make corrections on more than the ones that they've looked at. Generally, our offices, I would say, we don't have a set schedule. We never identified that you must give a certain amount of time, but I would say that it could be a couple days before, documents are actually reviewed in real time. But as we mentioned before, if you talk to your local programs office in the district that's assigned to your area, they can also advise based on workload and other projects that they have, they're reviewing. They could probably give you a better idea of what that time frame might look like.
And Jennifer, I don't know if you can pull up the acronym slide again, but we did get a question about the acronym RFA.
Oh, okay. And sorry, I don't know how to get back without going this route. That's a good point. The RFA is not here on the acronym side. So whoever brought that up, good catch. The RFA is I believe it's a local assistance document. It's your request for authorization for funding. And if I'm not mistaken, whoops, I don't know what slide exactly I've referenced to it for. Oh, when you're updating your certification. So when you are updating your certification, because it might be old, it might be more than a year old, then it's dependent on if you when you got your RFA signed and then when you are going to construction. So it's your request for authorization for funding.
All right. So as I mentioned before, we had a number of questions come in that have been answered in the chat or in the question and answer. If there are any additional questions that we can answer, looks like you are coming in here. Okay, let's see. Are environmental revalidation documents required as part of the NEPA clearance attachment?
You would, I mean, yeah, revalidating your environmental could be something that is needed depending on the length of time between environmental document and when you're actually going to construction.
Another question, if the project is not necessarily a new project, but we are requesting certification, is the checklist still needed?
The additional documentation, it would be needed for any certification. Except for the resolution that outlines who has signing authority, we can, we'll have the most current on file and we'll keep that one. But the other documentation would still be required if you are, had utility relocation, you wanted to get federal funding for that. So yes, you still would have to submit that right-of-way certification with the supporting docs.
Please clarify if a right-of-way cert needs updating, if TCE extensions are necessary.
You want me to answer that, Jen?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yeah, hi, this is David Chavez here. I work with Jennifer in local programs, Caltrans headquarters office. No, you don't need to, if you're updating your TCEs to prevent them from expiring, because they need to be extended, whatever, the construction ran longer than what you initially had intended, there is no need to update that right-of-way certification. Once the project's certified and into construction, there's no need. It would not require a need to update unless there was found work or additional right-of-way discovered that was necessary for the project once it started.
Thanks, David, for coming in and answering that question. Have another question. Is there a resolution template for granting authority for signatory for the right-of-way certification?
There's not one that we provide, no. That would be your internal, what your internal organization's requirements are when you're delegating signing authority for certain actions. We've seen some are delegated for a project, they're project specific, and who has signing authority for specific documents. We've seen some that are written more broadly for all real estate actions, etc. The more specific it is, the less questions we'll have, obviously, but there isn't necessarily a template where we state you must state this and it must, it must address each one of those things. But usually they're written in a logical manner where we're able to, with certainty know that that person who signed it is the one that has authority to bind your organization to it, essentially.
Another question for ER project, if there's no right-of-way required or utility cover adjustments are needed, do we still need to submit a 13A form?
If you have federal reimbursement that is going to be on that project, then yeah, you will need a right-of-way certification document.
All right. I think that's all the questions for these two presentations. Thank you, Jennifer and Lisa, for the presentations. And hope you found it useful. We had a lot of questions come in, so hopefully you got your questions answered. And we'll move to the next presentation. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Wenyi Long from the Office of Guidance and Oversight, presenting on value engineering analysis. Wenyi Long, go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Wenyi Long. I work for the Office of Guidance and Oversight in Division of Local Assistance. If after today, if you need more information about value engineering analysis, you can contact me or my colleague Kitay Nam. And here are our contact information. You can send us your request by email. We can get back to you as soon as possible. In this presentation, we will briefly describe what is the value engineering analysis, when to conduct the value engineering analysis, and what is the purpose to do value engineering, and how to conduct a value engineering analysis. And the last will be a list for some resources. So what is the value engineering analysis? Value engineering analysis is a function-oriented systematic process of reviewing, analyzing, and improving the value of a project. Value engineering analysis usually is conducted by a multidisciplinary team, and the team members have not directly involved with the planning and the development of the project. And the team member follows the VE job plan when perform value engineering analysis. In the development of value engineering analysis, people have used the different names for the process, such as value analysis or simply by VA. Caltrans usually uses VA to refer to value engineering analysis. And some people use value engineering or simply VE. Usually FHWA use VE for the value engineering analysis. And some other people use value management. Although different names have been used, the same core methodology remain the same. So when to conduct the value engineering analysis for a project, there's no universal best time to conduct the value engineering analysis that can be applied to every project. However, usually value engineering should be conducted as soon as possible when you have enough information to perform such an analysis. And the value engineering analysis shall be conducted prior to the completion of the final project. And all recommendations from the value engineering analysis should be included in the project's PS&E package prior to authorization for construction. So what is the purpose of the value engineering? Why we have to perform value engineering analysis? So the value engineering analysis is the purpose is to achieve a design excellence by investigating and analyzing the design of a project, by analyzing the project's functions and cost. And by performing value engineering analysis, we can improve and optimize the value and quality of the project. And we can also reduce the time to deliver or to develop the project. And from the value engineering analysis, we can generate alternatives for the project that satisfy the needed functions. The policy that require a federally funded project to have value engineering analysis is the Title 23 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 627. In 1997, the FHWA published the Value Engineering Analysis Regulation 23 CFR 627, formally established the program. 23 CFR 627 has a detailed description about value engineering analysis, including purpose and applicability, definitions, value engineering job plan, and so on. So it is a good idea to be familiar with the 23 CFR 627 when value engineering analysis is in concern. Here we need to pay attention. FHWA can withhold federal funds for any eligible project that is supposed to receive value engineering analysis, but do not receive one. So what type of project has to be performed the value engineering analysis? The following are the project that we have to perform the value engineering analysis. First is all federal aid highway project on national highway system with a total cost estimated as $50 million or more. The second type of project that have to perform a value engineering analysis is a federal aid bridge project on national highway system with a cost with a estimate cost of $40 million or more. And the third type of project that need to have a value engineering analysis is any major project, either on or off the national highway system, and that utilize federal aid highway funding in any contract or phase or comprising a major project. So what is a major project here? A major project is a project over $500 million. Another type of project that need to have a value engineering analysis is a project where a VA has not been conducted, but the change has been made to the project, the scope of work or design between the final design and the results in increase in the cost exceed the threshold we just described. Next type of project that have to do value engineering analysis is any project that FHWA determines appropriate. And last type of project is a CMGC project. If a CMGC project meets the requirement we just described, then the CMGC project has to receive a value engineering analysis. So how to conduct a value engineering analysis? Usually, a value engineering analysis process has the following 8 phases. The first phase is called the preparation phase. In preparation phase, we need to answer the question, what are we studying, who is on the team, and when to do it. There are activities that you may be involved with as a value engineering team member and before the value engineering workshop starts, which includes usually the pre-start meeting and review of the project information. The second phase is called the information phase. The information phase answers the question what we know about the situation and what the facts tell us. The information phase of the job plan begins with the kickoff meeting, which is always the first item on any VA workshop agenda. One of its key part is the presentation of the project overview. And the third phase is called the function analysis phase. The function analysis phase is when we ask the questions such as what the functions are and why are they there and which are the most important. Function analysis help us focus on the purpose of the project by creating distance from the object to think about, and it allows us more divergent thinking. The fourth phase is called creative phase, or some people call it a speculation phase. In this phase, we explore how else we can perform the key functions. During the creativity phase, the VA study facilitator will lead the group through several activities focused on generating different ideas that satisfy the project functions. And the fifth phase called the evaluation phase. Evaluation phase answers questions which idea will best improve value. And the team evaluates all the ideas generated during the creativity phase. And the sixth phase called the development phase. The development phase answers the questions how the alternative works, how much will it cost. A large part of the VA study workshop focuses on the development of the team's top ideas into VA alternatives. And the seventh phase is called the presentation phase. In the presentation phase is where we answer the questions, what the conclusions are, what do we recommend. And the VA study workshop concludes with a 60 to 90 minutes presentation. And the main goal of this presentation is to clearly and concisely communicate the alternatives to the stakeholders present. The last phase is called the implementation phase. This is where we answer the question how we integrate the accepted alternatives. And after the VA study workshop, the VA study facilitator will prepare a draft of VA study report. So this is a value engineering analysis typical agenda for Caltrans project. The purpose of this slide is to show show you what could be for each day in a typical VA study analysis. For example, the first day can be start with a kickoff meeting. First VA team member analysis, VA team member arrive and start to set up, followed by introductions and VA agenda review. And there's a project review by project manager and engineers. And then stakeholders issues and concerns. After that, it can be performance prioritization and performance requirements. As you can see, this is a full day activity. I'm not going to read everything in for every day here. But it just give you some idea what every day's activity could be for a typical value engineering analysis. So usually how long a value engineering study should be? For Caltrans project, usually it's a 6-day or 40-hour work plan. Ideally, it should be 2-3-day sessions, but 5 days also acceptable for many smaller projects. Of course, the length of study should be determined by the pre-meeting and also by the complexity of the project and the study scope. But usually, if a value engineering is finished by like 3 days or less, that will not do good. And for large complexity project, of course, it will require more study for longer durations. So after the VE study, that is after going through the 8 phases, a formal report shall be prepared. And the report shall at least include the following items. First, the report should include should have project information, have a detailed description of the project, such as location, functions, and schedule, a cost, and so on. And the report should identify the value engineer analysis team, and also have a background and supporting documentation, such as information obtained from other analyses. And also the report should document the analysis conducted, such as the description of what have been done in different phases. And the report should also summarize the analysis conducted. And finally, the report should document the recommendations and the approvals. The district value engineering coordinate. So the former report shall be retained with the project file at least for 3 years after the completion of the project. And the local agency should submit a copy of the report to the DLAE, and the DLAE will forward the report to the district value engineering analysis coordinator. And the coordinator will submit the report to the headquarters branch, value engineering analysis branch. And the branch can submit the report with their annual report, eventually go to FHWA. So here are some resources for your convenience. The first two are actually FHWA's website, and the third one is Caltrans website. Again, these are our contact information. So if you need further information, you can contact me or Kitay's name. This is my presentation, the end of my presentation. Thank you. Kevin, go back to you. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Wenyi, for the presentation and providing your contact information. We had a number of questions come in during your presentation. Some of those, looks like most of the questions have been answered. So we'll see, feel free to send any additional questions for Wenyi. Any additional questions? A number of resources from the presentation were sent out through the chat as well, so be sure to pick those up as well. Any more questions on value engineering analysis? All right, we'll wait just a minute here to see if any additional questions come in before we move to the next presentation. All right, seeing no additional questions. Thank you, Wenyi, for the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.
All right, moving on in the agenda, we have our next agenda item. I'd like to introduce Scott Jakovich, local technical assistance program manager, with his agenda item, Build a Better Mousetrap Innovation Competition. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Kevin. And thanks everyone for joining us today. These local technical assistance webinars have become a great way for Caltrans to connect with all of us on a quarterly basis. So I hope you're finding today's information to be of value. My name is, as Kevin mentioned, my name is Scott Jakovich. I manage California's local technical assistance program. If you don't know us, we're part of the Caltrans local assistance family, but the ones located down south at Cal State Long Beach. Our role is to support your efforts with low to no cost training, get you the technical assistance you need, and keep you informed on all the state and federal funding that's being released to help get your jobs done. When you get a chance, I encourage you to check out our website at www.caltap.org. Another big part of our mission is to discover and share any best practices we learn about from other state and local agencies, which is why we push California to participate in Federal Highway's Build a Better Mousetrap competition. Build a Better Mousetrap is their way of encouraging all of us to share local innovation, meaning any clever way you've come up with to tackle a common daily transportation or road maintenance challenge under your responsibility. By applying, Build a Better Mousetrap offers a way for your agency to take the national stage as an innovator and a problem solver, and in turn to help anyone else who may be struggling with the same kind of challenges you've already overcome, and to help them see things in a new way. The QR code you see here leads to our application website, and you'll also find this in my contact information in the chat box. As you get back to work today, I'd like you to consider what clever, innovative solution you've come up with that could help another agency be more effective, more efficient, or operate more safely. Then come back to our website or contact me about submitting an application so we can help you get the word out. That's what our friends at the City of Walnut Creek did last year. Their Public Works team won Federal Highway's National Pioneer Award for developing an inexpensive yet highly efficient and safe way to evaluate their city's traffic signal site clearance, using what amounts to little more than a dash-mounted smartphone and a laptop. This year, we'd like to see California represented again by one of you. We're still accepting applications for another couple of weeks, so I hope you'll reach out to me if you think you've got something cool to share. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Scott. Just wanted to, if there aren't any questions on this, emphasize the safety and innovation themes, in the presentations today, and hope you found some of the nothing any questions. So thanks, Scott, for sharing that information today. All right, so the next agenda item is mine. And while I'm pulling up a PDF, I'm going to be sharing information about upcoming office hours and webinars being offered by local assistants. So that information should be in the chat, coming through the chat as well. Okay, should be able to see that. So in the next couple of months, May, June, and July, the Division of Local Assistance has a series of office hours and webinars that we're offering. Some important information regarding DBE, disadvantaged business enterprises. We have a goal setting webinar and a good faith efforts. The May 9th is the goal setting webinar from 9 to 10:30. May 16th is the good faith efforts. So I encourage you, if you have questions and need more information about DBE, to attend those important webinars. You saw the presentation earlier on the Highway Safety Improvement Program. So we have additional webinar with additional information on the 21st of May from 9 to 11. And then we have office hours, June 6th, for the preliminary environmental study. So check out the office hours. Architectural and engineering oversight is also has office hours in July from 10 to 11. So check that out. And then it's also the architectural and engineering oversight is also offering office hours on the 23rd of May from 10 to 11. So I encourage you, if you haven't signed up already, to sign up for the Local Assistance blog and stay informed to announcements and trainings. With that, if there are any questions about local assistance in general or how to contact local assistance, as I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, my name is Kevin Tucker. I'm a local project management liaison. You can reach out to me if you have questions about project management. I work with a number of different offices in local assistance. I've been with local assistance for about 6 months. Before that, I worked in transportation planning and also worked in District 1. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And with that, I'll move to the final agenda, which is the closing out. So thank you to all the presenters. And thank you for asking questions. It makes this much more interactive if we have questions. There were upwards of 350 attendees. So the format sort of allows us to provide answers through the question and answer session and live answering of questions. But just thank you for asking those questions and informing those of us who are on the webinar and those who may be watching the webinar later on. Encourage you to check out the websites and blog for additional information. And yeah, just want to thank everyone for attending today and look forward to the next Local Assistance Day. If there aren't any last minute questions, then I think we'll close out Local Assistance Day webinar. Thank you, everyone.